to Chart Delineation Session December 12th, 2025. Um, Here we are in Sagittarius season, and we're getting together tonight. It's a Friday night, and talking astrology, looking at the charts and seeing what we can come up with together, finding, trends and looking at the different aspects and seeing how they're true to life, what we can find in those. So I know some of the sessions we've had a celebrities chart. Sometimes we've done personal charts, and that's what I was saying, Luke, is I'm open to any of that. Sometimes I think it almost
Well,
turns out better when you just
why don't we leave it
organically
up to
say,
what about Walter and Teresa? Is there anything particular you'd like to
yeah.
go over as a chart? Let's have a go at. It's a good question, isn't it? You're
Um,
on the spot.
Oh, I don't mind. Yeah, what you want to delineate our charts or?
Oh, any chart. Is there anybody's you're wanting to look at? I mean, if you had something in mind you wanted to take a look at, we can. I have one, but at the same time, I also like for students to come in and say, there's this one I'd like to take a look at.
What
Hmm.
what chart have you got there now, Jen?
So I looked up what famous people have birthdays near to now, and the one that popped up was Steven Spielberg, the
That'd be
movie
interesting.
producer.
That would be interesting.
All
Yeah.
right, well, just give
Okay,
me a
is
minute.
that okay? You guys
Yeah.
want to
Yeah,
take a look at that? And then if something comes to you and we want to look at a different one, I'm fine with that too. So let
sounds good.
me share my screen. So, all right, I gotta move things around just a little bit, so bear with me. So his birthday is December 18th, just a few days away. I also had found, and then so think about this when you're thinking about a Sagittarius. Um, uh, Frank Sinatra was a Sagittarius. Can you imagine that through his music? Sinatra's music has that kind of flowy feel to it, kind of worldly in a way or old world. I don't know. Jimi Hendrix was a
Yeah.
Sagittarius.
Oh, my favorite musician. Yeah.
Yeah. And so anyway, I struck up on this one here, and what I really liked when I first saw it is like, and I mean it's obviously the season, but still has a lot of Scorpio in it. So you can see that he's a sixth house sun. He's got Mars conjunct the sun. So he is definitely driven, produced a lot of movies, first got famous for Jaws in 1975. The year before I was born. I was born in 76, but I was a little 4 or 5 year old kid. My babysitter had older kids and they all wanted to go see Jaws. And she was trying to decide whether to take me in that theater or not. And we ended up leaving. I couldn't make it through it. Like the music, even today, like dun 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 dun. And I'm like, oh no, I don't want to see it. I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway, he did E.T. Think about that. Other kind of something different, something way out there. He did Indiana Jones. So all the Indiana Jones series, that's the explorer, that's the Sagittarian, the seeker, off on adventures, going somewhere different. And I think this chart shows that. So you see, he's got a Scorpio moon. Notice, uh,
Yeah, we are using equal
Walter,
houses here.
Mm-hmm.
am I unequal?
Yeah.
Yep,
Here,
up to
let
Only
me switch it.
what house system do you want to use, guys?
I was probably looking at something. I did a reading here a couple of days ago.
I,
Where do I-
I
You
like
plus
It
all
must have
kind of
pulled up
fascinating.
as equal.
Yeah, Placidus is fine.
It says it's in Placidus, but you're
Mm-hmm.
right. It says it on there. And they must on these charts that already are within this Astro Gold software. They must do them with equal.
It's Placidus house system. It's just shown in equal size segments for easier
Yeah.
viewing
Hmm.
Rather than the actual
than
calculator.
scrunching them. Yeah.
Yeah. That must be the way they do them to use them as a teaching technique. I mean, does it bother you guys? Does it bother you, Luke, if we use this chart?
I'm not used to using equal houses.
Oh,
I
it
either
is
go
equal
with sort of,
houses.
what's that? I would
It
normally
is
go
equal.
with whole sign,
Yeah.
or I'd go with Placidus. That's normally what I would do, one or the
Yeah.
other.
Oh, Placidus unequal signs.
6:16 p.m. He was
Mhm.
born here in Cincinnati. How about that? I think his spirit called to me because I had no idea. I didn't know that. And he is an Orthodox Jew. And there's a community right near me, an old Jewish community that's like one town over. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I wonder if he lived right down the street, you know?
Hmm.
So I had no idea about any of this. So that was very, very interesting to me. But I can recast this really quick. And I love that we call it casting a chart. That kind of cracks me up. Let's see if it'll do it just from here. Tropical Placidus. There we go.
There we
Hmm.
go.
So he's still sixth house sun. Didn't change anything too much, did it?
I think it's
It
put
moved
Saturn into the second house with
into the
Pluto,
second
which makes
house.
more sense to
Right.
me. Yeah. Okay. Well, that's
So
Saturn Pluto.
the other interesting connection to myself that I noticed is I have Saturn at 8 degrees Leo. Exactly. 8 degrees Leo. And I'm like, huh,
See, there you
Hmm.
go,
that's
Jen.
interesting.
You're his Saturn return child. So one he
But
didn't know he
so
had.
8 degrees Leo. So let's talk about his life just a little bit. So and this does change things up because in the other chart, Chiron was further down in fourth house. His parents divorced when he was about 15. There was problems in the family. They moved around a lot, even though he was born here. They were in Arizona. They were in New Jersey. He went to high school, I want to say, in California, or I know at least college in California. Um, his grandparents had come out of the Holocaust. So, you know, there was that survivorship piece of things, and their faith was very important, but then there was also this like I need to hide it type of thing, which, you know, Neptune is there, you know, hiding, kind of
Hmm.
muddying the waters. You know, he needed that little bit of a smoke screen, or there's definitely something kind of mysterious about family. But with a name like Spielberg, you know, I don't think you can deny that, you know, there's some Judaism there. Uh,
The interesting thing is what I'm seeing straight away when I look at his chart, there's things that stand out to me, is that Neptune is nearly exact square to the ascendant.
mm-hmm.
So it's same
Yep.
degree, it's nearly the same minute. But
Yep.
talking about something funny, Jen, that Neptune, he's got 1038. That's exactly my Mars degree and minute. Um, so funny little funny thing. So I see. Don't forget, he was somebody who was very strongly into illusion and being able to
Yeah.
create fantasy. And where is the dispositing ruler of that Neptune? It's in the fifth house, conjunct Jupiter in Scorpio. So you know he that there's definitely that creative self. You know, the Moon, Jupiter, Venus.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Well,
he
Jupiter Venus conjunction right there. You know, his
well, the
benefics
Moon's a
are
little
in the
bit
fifth
further
house.
away
That's
from.
going to be his stroke of luck.
It's it'd be conjunct by whole sign, but it's not. The Moon's not conjunct that Jupiter. Um, it's a little bit far away. It's a little
Mm-hmm.
11 degrees, but it's still trining the ascendant. So he's definitely got an influence over the public. That's how I would see that as well. And in a, you know, I wonder what, from a creative point of view, does anyone know whether he had what other sort of things he was interested in? Because look, there you've got three planets, and they're very positive planets: the Jupiter, Moon, and Venus in the fifth house. Um,
Well, there was
did
a
he?
story that I read about his mother, And so during the divorce period, he was a teenager. There's some quote that he referred back to about his imagination became his best friend. So the divorce must have been very hard for him. He felt like he had no friends, and so you kind of see that in E.T., in these movies, like he did after Jaws, Encounters of the Third Kind. I'm sorry, which was an alien movie. So he's interested in kind of that magical woo-woo, kind of a thing. You see it there, and even in Indiana Jones. And then he did one called Empire of the Sun, and sometime back in the 80s. And that makes me think about that Sag energy as well. He did Jurassic Park. He did, so again, dinosaurs coming back, that imagination. And
Hmm.
if you
There's also a
look
lot
at
of death in
that talent trine, they're hooked off of, the Neptune, and it goes over to his Saturn. So Saturn and Pluto heavily controlled. That says to me that he wants to be seen and known for something and famous, but it can't be too, um, like he's won several awards, all different, Academy Awards, Best Motion Picture, whatever. He's got a whole stack of them, but at the same time, I don't think he's like uh, he wants to be known for his work. He wants to be seen, but at the same time, it's very controlled. It's very calculated. And he will only take on certain projects. He won't just do anything, and they have to mean something. And you said grief. He did Schindler's List.
Do you?
Yeah,
That was
he also did The Color Purple. So,
Yes,
yep,
yes, yes, indeed.
yeah.
Do you feel that he's a private person? A lot of planets are below the horizon. Would you say that
yep,
a person, he's a very private person, not a very outward person looking for
yes.
recognition? Yeah,
Well,
I
he's
would
behind the camera lens, right?
yeah,
yeah.
So
right,
look at that 12th house in Uranus. I mean, that's where he makes things happen, is behind the
right.
camera
Behind
lens.
the camera, right, right.
And that's the
Mm-hmm.
other thing that stood out to me. Have a look at that aspect. You've got this very strong quincunx to Venus in the fifth house,
Hmm.
and that's Venus's next applying aspect will be that quincunx to Uranus from the 12th. So yes, he's definitely, it's interesting because we were talking about the secrecies of what could be happening in Hollywood. You look at his chart and you go, I wonder.
Hmm. Hmm.
Uranus there in the 12th house with his Venus in the fifth and all in Scorpio and Gemini. And you just go, I just wonder. But I definitely think his upbringing would have been tough. Look at that moon square Saturn and Pluto.
And the moon is
So,
still in
Right.
its fall. Hmm.
what's that?
The moon is in its fall also.
Yeah, exactly. And did you
Mhm.
say he had more problems with his mum than he did with his dad?
Well, so
You don't
so
know.
no, his mother, she lived to a very old age. They called her Peter Pan because she was always moving and changing and doing what they thought was crazy stuff. And so she kind of felt like a little unstable from what I read. So I think he always had to kind of watch over his mom a little bit, wondering, is she okay? What crazy thing is she going to go off and do now? You know.
Mhm.
I wonder if she was also highly spiritual. I mean, look at that 10th house rulership of Pisces.
Yes.
The Jupiter, that rulership of Jupiter is there with that Venus. So she probably came across as someone very pleasant and loving on the surface, but she may
Mhm.
have also been
Right.
quite manipulative. But if you look at the other ruler, you got Neptune, and that was also,
Mhm.
Neptune is in Libra, which is ruled by Venus. So it all sort of brings into, but that Neptune is the instability of the home situation, the change, the movement.
Mhm.
Um,
Then the ancient ruler Jupiter is in
yes, that's
Scorpio.
right. And Jupiter is in Scorpio,
Mhm.
having the same sorts of impact. And that
Mhm.
Jupiter is squaring Pluto.
Mhm.
So his Mars is in Capricorn, very powerful Mars. So, to me, that's
Mm-hmm.
definitely making him quite industrious. The sun's approaching it, so that Mars is under
Right.
the beams. Um,
Yep.
but it's not Kazemi. So his that's a good. It's an interesting combination because if you're talking about the sun having a little bit of power over that Mars, it might be, but the Mars itself is in a very powerful position in
Mm-hmm.
Capricorn exaltation. So Um, and don't forget, there's a mutual reception. Oh no, it's not mutual reception. Sorry, it's not. I was going to say I was looking at the Mars, but thinking about the Sun. Um, that Mars is, in Saturn's ruler, which is ruled by the Sun. So you got a little bit of a loop there
Mm-hmm.
going on between the Sun,
Well,
Mars, and
and
Saturn.
so he has announced that he's making a new movie and it's very calculated. So I find this interesting. It's another alien movie. He's put a big picture out on that square in Times Square in New York, and there was something on Instagram where there's his team or whatever they've been posting about it, and it says that it will come to light. They'll make real announcements about this new film or series or whatever it is he's doing, and it's got an alien on the picture, and it says June 12th. And so I looked up June 12th. I can't find anything super specific about that, but I know Jupiter is going into Leo, which would give a little positive hit to that Saturn in Leo, right? So Jupiter's going to be coming up on his Saturn, helping to bring some impact, some increase into whatever he's controlling, whatever he's developing, whatever he is trying to manifest there. So I think that'll probably be, so you guys will have to watch and see. Will that be a good calculation for him, or will that be a flop?
I think it'll be fine because that Jupiter's conjuncting his Saturn in the second house, which will bring
Right,
him money. Yeah.
right.
Um, uh, and the fact that sun is ruled by Jupiter. So yeah, I can't see that being a major. It's trine by sign to that Saturn and Pluto. I think what he puts his mind to, when he really puts his mind to it, he does well, and he's got the influence already. So yeah,
Chiron is also going to be moving into Taurus right around that time, which means he'll have a Chiron opposition. So, personally, I wonder what he'll be going through or what we'll hear from or about him or,
he may have his own
I
health
don't,
challenges.
right. That's what I'm thinking. That's what I'm
Mm,
thinking. There could also around that same time come up something to do with his health, him trying to take on too much,
yeah.
trying to
Anyone
have
else?
a revival.
Teresa, what are you seeing in the chart that
Um,
stands out to you?
I can't help but also like think about what it would look like in whole sign because that's what I'm more familiar with.
Okay.
And
Do you
the
want to do the whole sign chart there,
and
Jen?
then the Mars would be in the seventh house. So I was just curious about his relationships with Mars as possibly in the seventh house, which
Well,
I
let's do
so
a
I
little.
kind of went off
Yeah,
on
I
a
couldn't
tangent
agree.
there a little bit. Um,
Let's see.
Mars is in Capricorn, so it's exalted.
yep.
Yeah,
Mhm.
And that's where my Mars is. Mine's in Capricorn in the seventh, so I was just,
Mhm.
noticing that interesting bit. Um,
so he was married to Amy Irving for 4 years in the 80s, and he's been married to Kate Capshaw ever since.
There we go.
And Mars is on the cusp, almost.
Yeah.
and I always find the nodes interesting because I have this like,
Now on whole sign, oh, I'm sorry. Go
oh, go
ahead.
ahead. I always find the nodes interesting too because I like, for some reason, I'm like intrigued by like nodal placements and,
Yep,
past stuff and future stuff and his north nodes in Gemini. um, with the South Node in Sag. So I think about that a little bit too. And that Gemini North Node seems to go along with his film career.
absolutely. Yeah.
Hmm.
And in the 12th house, very interestingly, it's like he's working from a subconscious level.
Mhm.
He's bringing
He
out of his
always does
subconscious.
sequels.
Yes.
There's sequels to everything he produces.
Well, have a look at that. The Mercury conjunct the South Node. He's used to doing things more than once.
Right. And Uranus and Gemini in the 12th, he's unconventional.
Yes,
Innovative. Hmm.
innovative, exactly.
Hmm.
But I look at that net because when you look at I always look at the node as the pot of gold. You know, what is it you're destined to do? So if you're not doing what you're destined to do, life tends to throw you curveballs. And if he's destined to be doing stuff in the 12th house, then in some ways he's working in a level I would nearly call it on a maybe where he works is within to him it's working within an institution and working within an unconventional way within that institution. So he runs two models, you know, like he does things that need to be a specific way, and then he does his own unconventional component that he does completely separate.
Hmm.
I wouldn't be surprised. I look at that North Node Uranus and say I do think he probably has a bit of a dual life. I would say that
Yeah.
what he's doing is he's got a front that he has to the public and he has his own private
Hmm.
life, and they're very different.
Hmm.
That's
Hmm.
what I would sort of interpret that as. And he's
Well,
used to
I've
doing
done
it.
some study on Holocaust survivors in some of my college work for myself. I was an English major, of course, and it's generations deep when
Yes.
you've had that kind of trauma. You know, the first survivors of the Holocaust were basically catatonic. I mean, they could barely even exist. They could barely work. They could barely, their children talk about just surviving those parents. And the children felt sorry for them, but, they didn't have warmth. The parents were just devastated. I've read several stories of that. And so then the next generation will say, well, I was abused by my parents and it's because of the way their parents treated them, and so there's all this like generational forms of trauma that he probably carries. Because if you think about his works, think about he started, um, if now in whole sign you see his midheaven move to Aries, but in Placidus he was a Pisces uh, midheaven, and then he's a double water having a moon in Scorpio and rising in Cancer. And so it made me laugh to think Jaws was his big hit, kind of the shark, because in some ways having Saturn and Pluto in second house, he's the shark. He you don't see him coming. He's 12th house and you don't see him coming and he's coming in, if you look at just his films, and probably they've already done this in literature in a different way, but think about the order of things, how the turn from like E.T. was warm and fuzzy and Indiana Jones was interesting and cool, and then we go to the color purple. I mean, that hit a sore spot somewhere.
I think
That
that's
was
very much
one.
his moon in Scorpio. He likes to get into the deep, dark side of
Mm-hmm.
emotion, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and he
Mm-hmm.
expresses that through his creativity. He's never going to do something that's not going to hit you emotionally.
And it wasn't his
And
fault
he,
because it's Alice Walker's work. He just
Yeah,
put that on
right.
film. Hmm.
yeah.
Right. But I'm sure that it
Hmm.
spoke to him, like the abuse, and just like, oh my God, can you imagine what this life was like? And he's like, well, I'm going to show you
Hmm.
behind my camera. I'm going to show you what that life was like, and there were, and anyway, the color purple, gosh, we could spend a whole we ought to look at Alice Walker. We could spend a whole session just that was an amazing movie. I remember being a kid and seeing that, and you know, so I grew up in Central Kentucky, and there's still a lot of racism in Kentucky.
Hmm.
And it really opened my eyes as a child, because there were things we were studying in elementary school, that celebrated the Confederacy,
Hmm.
and I saw, as a kid, I was like, oh my God, like really, and it became in some ways stories like that for me a vehicle to continue to read, because reading was an escape. I also, by the way, have North Node and Uranus together, but in a different sign. So, so I think he speaks to me just a little bit. That use of imagination, and you see that one trine that's hooked in with, with Neptune at the head, and then you see the other trine from his north node to Neptune, and it's got Saturn and Pluto at the head. So he's figured out how to take these deep stories and bring them out, and things that have been hidden and subversive, and which we've said all that already. But the more we talk about it, even though he probably does have a double life, and who knows what that is, I kind of I like what I've seen so far of his
Mhm.
chart.
Oh, look, he's got a very powerful chart. But I think Walter was, and Teresa, you'd agree, most of his planets are in that northern hemisphere. So he's
Mhm.
more likely to be a private, yet he's such a public person.
Mhm.
Right.
However, you never see him that often in front of a camera getting
Mhm.
interviewed. He's
Mhm.
usually
Mm-hmm.
behind the camera, doing
Right.
that work.
Right.
I really see that as being a strong point. Um, that I'm also looking, going. I wonder what's coming up for him. Look, he's health wise. Just I'm not sure yet. But where's Saturn? It's moving into Aries, so Saturn's going to be squaring his Mars.
And he's
Neptune's going to
turning
be squaring his
79.
Mars. What's that?
Yeah.
He's turning 79. He's like
Yeah, and
Trump's
his
age.
Saturn is also
Yeah.
Saturn is also squaring his Sun at the moment. So it's turned back and it's coming back again. It'd be interesting to see, because you were talking about going through Chiron return. I wonder if he's going
Mm-hmm.
to have any sort of health setbacks coming up in the next 12 months. That's because it is his, in Placidus it's in his sixth house, but it is in his seventh otherwise. Or or if it's not him, what about his partner? What about
Right. His wife.
you know
Yeah.
his wife? So
Yeah.
it's interesting. This is the thing I find, from a purely delineation point of view. When you I tend to try and delineate from one chart type. Like you said, Teresa, I'm more familiar with the whole sign. So therefore, if you're working it from there, you use that, and that's what you work with. I grew up doing Placidus, but I like doing both.
Hmm.
And because they do, like you see here, give you a different perspective. And just that one movement of Mars from the sixth to the seventh can change the whole picture as to what a square to Mars is going to do.
Mm-hmm.
And also, if you look at Placidus, that's the difference between a ninth house rulership of Mars and a 10th house rulership of Mars. So yeah, interesting. But it could just be that, when you said, Jen, will this new movie be a bit more of a flop than a success? Um, with the Aries ruling the midheaven, Saturn moving into Aries, it's going to go across that point, and it's going to be
Mm-hmm.
squaring the Mars, the ruler of it. It may be that there's more of a lack of take up. But if you put it into Placidus, it doesn't see it that way as easily. That's all.
Right. Well, and I've also interpreted that for myself as a delay. It could be a
Maybe it's
delay happening. There could be some problems around it with Neptune, a writer's strike or some of the things that happen with the production of movies over here. Um, I also thought about with Saturn moving into Aries, that's going to strengthen the position of his Saturn. So that might actually be a positive for
yeah.
him. It might actually make it take off. And then here I'll leave you with another thought that I keep thinking. If you go back and just look at his chart, and so he likes to make these alien movies, otherworldly things. He's definitely had a fascination with that. And so then I'm thinking, well, what about Aquarius? Because normally you would see Aquarius in that mix. Well, he's got, Saturn and Pluto opposite of Aquarius, but what he does have is Ceres over there in Aquarius. Well, right now, Pallas Athena is conjunct that, so he's
Literally.
taken charge he's taken charge in that kind of way. But I think, there's some astrologers who are really getting into the minor at planets, the asteroids, and Ceres is actually closer to a planet than it is an asteroid. And it might be worth looking at Ceres to see, what I don't know a whole lot about Ceres, but looking at the characteristics and thinking about the influence of, kind of that otherworldliness, because that's where it's coming through. And obviously, we've got Pluto coming through, and it could be if we're talking about health, it's not there yet, but in a few years, he's going to have an opposition, you know. So maybe this is one of his last, big projects, given the age that he's
Could be, yeah.
becoming. So.
The interesting, can I go a little off topic, but just for the sake of what, and I'm not sure how this influences, but part of the research I've done over the years, and especially when I look at, say, picking a horse race winner, I tend to find that certain planets have more of an influence, like actually a physical impact on things that go on the Earth, meaning ones that spin faster. So their day cycles are much faster. So that includes things like Mars, which is nearly equivalent to the
Mhm.
Earth, because the Earth's 24, just under 24 hours, 23:56 or something or other. That's why we have a sidereal zodiac have to be changed. But generally speaking, Mars is like 24 hours, 32 minutes. And then you got Jupiter's at about 9 hours, 50. Saturn's about 10:17, I think, 10 hours, 17 minutes. Uranus and Neptune about 16, 17 hours each, that sort of thing. Um, but Venus like turns really slow, like 243 days to turn around once. Mercury's like, I can't remember. Let's say it's 58. Might be Pluto. I can't remember off the top of
I
my
think
head.
it's 88 days. Wasn't it?
What's that?
Is it 88 days?
Might be 88 days. I
Mercury.
can't
Yeah.
remember off the top of my head. I
Hmm.
do have it because I've used it,
Hmm.
but I just can't remember sometimes. I get confused.
Hmm.
Um, and the sun and moon, as we have, they're in balance. They take 30 days to turn around, pretty much. Okay.
Hmm.
So it's part of the reason I think these are the sorts of reasons why we have life on this planet. But
Hmm.
what I've since just recently looked at is a lot of these asteroids and even Chiron turn really fast. Like some of them have a day cycle of 5 hours. So they're spinning like tops.
Hmm.
They're going really quick. So when I think about it like that, even though they're small objects compared to a bigger planet, they're still producing something. That's why I think they have influence. That's what I'm finding. So they may have more influence over things than we give credit for, or I've given credit for, especially in the past. So what you're saying, Jen, may be something definitely to look at, or one of the reasons why people look at them a little bit more, seriously. So what I see though, when we had recently, I think it was the Melbourne Cup this year, we had a situation, and Walter, I'm not sure if you were in that one. I know David Shipman was, but I did trying to pick the winner of the Melbourne Cup, and the the main thing that was happening was that Juno was exactly right on the midheaven. So if you go
Really?
through the archetypes, and it was within minutes, and the next aspect that the midheaven was going to make was to Juno, literally, and also it was nearly an exact sesquiquadrate to Jupiter, and Jupiter was ruling the midheaven. So here we had a situation where what I've found out more so is that Juno was Jupiter's wife in mythology, and she was basically, totally committed, and it's all about the fact that it's like, you know, I'm. It's like a universal or a higher spiritual love. She's committed to this guy that's not treating her very well, which is Jupiter. Um, and the funny thing is, when we looked at the horses that were running, the one that won that race was called Half Yours.
Oh.
So when we looked at the Juno and Jupiter, I went, well, look, and what happened where I got it wrong, I still bet on Half Yours, but I knew because of the where Uranus was in the chart and the Jupiter association that it wasn't going to be a favorite that won. And the interesting thing is, Half Yours was originally, when we were looking, the favorite of the race. So I went, you know what? I'll be going with Half Yours, except I don't think it's going to be a favorite that wins. By the time the race ran, half yours was about the fourth or fifth favorite, so it wasn't a favorite anymore, and it won. So
Hmm.
that was the interesting correlation. But my point I'm making is that I also saw, you're going to laugh at this one, what made me step up and think about it was it a couple of years ago, I saw a horse that won a race, and it was called Juno. So I looked at and cast the chart and said, where are the asteroids after the case, right? And guess what was sitting right on the midheaven?
Asteroid.
Juno. So you can't tell me that these asteroids don't have a physical impact on what's going on around us. Even though in other words, you can't underestimate them. You can't, So if there's a takeaway from today in chart delineation, is that maybe looking at the relationships that these asteroids have, some of the bigger ones, that is, and the more predominant, I find I don't use them or haven't in the past because you put too much in the chart. There's too many things. It creates too much
Mhm.
energy and information. But what I suppose my point would be is that if you've got a chart where you've got a significant placement of an asteroid, then you've got to include it in that person's interpretation. So it's always good to look where they are. That's what
And
I
it's
would do.
only, a 4-degree orb from being opposite Pluto, the series. And
Yeah.
if I remember right, series is about how we nurture ourselves, how we take care of ourselves, and has something to do with self-care. So maybe that nurtures his Neptune down there. Being able to go out and look at the weird things, the alien species, the dinosaurs, animating them. What if dinosaurs roam the earth? Asking those kind of what if questions because he's definitely an outside the box thinker, you know. So I think that series I think that you're right. It's a good testament to, okay, what about our minors? And Ceres is considered one of the four goddess asteroids, the four main goddesses people look at. It's Ceres and Pallas Athena and Juno, and then there's a fourth one. Which one is that one?
Is it Vesta?
Vesta.
Vesta. Yeah, you got it.
Hmm.
I'm
There,
recovering from a little cold. Excuse me. My cough is trying to come
there's a
back.
there's a new book out on series. Louise
Yes,
Edison
Louise
just
Eddington.
yeah.
I ordered it. Yes,
I
yes.
haven't yet. I'm interested in asteroids, but I'm still trying to get the basics down. So
Totally agree, Teresa. I think you
Right.
should be sticking to the basics. But all I was going to say for future reference is that when you cast a chart, if you've got, say, especially on these, you can sort of, like Jen's done, you can add in the points that you want to add in and maybe have two systems. So create a new one that has asteroids included and one that doesn't.
Oh,
The one you
where'd it
normally
go?
use, and then throw the asteroid one up and say, do we have something that's, boom, that's hitting somewhere that's really
Right.
strong. If you've got like, I mean, in my chart, I have Juno conjunct the midheaven. So I've never really looked at it before, but I think, okay, there's got to be something. I mean, it's within a degree and a half. My midheaven's 1508, and it's 13 something, but yeah, I haven't really included it, you could say, in the past. But I may have a closer look and sort of see what things. But what will happen though is the interesting thing is when Jupiter conjuncts my midheaven, which will be next year, by transit, I'm also going to have it conjunct Juno. So I wonder what the impact will be.
Right.
That's the sort of thing I'm
Mhm.
now going to sort of look at to observe a bit more. That's all.
and I was just looking at the series right now is at 3 degrees of Aries. I don't know how fast Ceres
Mhm.
moved, but it just went over my moon. My
And
moon's
how's
at
that?
like
How's
Oh,
that?
2 degrees, so I don't know what that means. That could explain a few things.
if we go on just one and then I click on series, it'll give us a little interpretation. It
Oh,
says
Mm.
there we
series
go.
represents nurturing, therefore, it reveals information about the mother child relationship. It is how we nurture others and how we need to be nurtured. It also tells of our capacity to love ourselves and others unconditionally. Ceres in Aquarius feels cared for when others accept and encourage their sense of individuality. You feel comforted when surrounded by groups of people. You teach others to accept their eccentricities because you accept your own individuality. You're better than most when it comes to sharing. You need to work with others, sharing resources and discovering new methods. And then his is in eighth house. So, it's deep connection. It's serious. It's important.
Oh,
Let's
interesting.
see.
My natal series is in Aquarius in the eighth house.
Really? Look,
I
and here we are. Look how Spielberg's speaking to all of us in some kind of way. That's so
just
funny.
realized that. Huh, interesting.
So the mother-child
So
relationship.
deep.
What was your relationship like with your mother?
Oh, my mom was very nurturing. She was a Pisces. Um,
Yeah.
and she was very nurturing, but she was also a fiery redhead.
Okay.
I always felt very
But,
loved by her. I don't feel like she always understood me real well because we were quite different, but I always felt very loved by her.
okay. Do you find was she typically Aquarian, a little bit erratic or a bit volatile occasionally? Was that how you felt?
A little bit. Yep.
Yeah. But was she
Well,
just
look,
have
are
did she
you
have
a
a different
mother?
approach to life?
I am. Yep.
Okay, well, the mother who's an astrologer, could that be you?
Oh,
Aquarian?
maybe. And it's interesting. Yeah, I'll have to look into that a little bit more when I get some free time.
Funnily enough, isn't it? Here we are. We've gone from talking about Spielberg to talking about asteroids. Anyway, all good. Well, that's the whole idea of these things, isn't it? To have a bit of, have open that discussion. David, I mean Walter, have you done anything to do much with asteroids in your
I've
astrological
always
journey?
followed the ancient systems. Lee Lehman's, Rob Hand,
Yeah.
Robert Zoller's work. So I've always this is all new to me, and but I
Okay.
find it
Okay.
very interesting. So you know the they
So
only
you've
deal with
gone
the
through the
seven planets.
Fedaria and that type of stuff, have you?
No, I've dealt with the seven. They only deal with seven planets, most of them. They don't
Yes.
deal
Okay.
with the outer planets. They go, farther they go out
The
is Saturn.
Ptolemaic,
Yeah, the
Yeah.
the
Ptolemaic.
Well,
Ptolemaic
Yeah,
aspects.
yeah. Farther they
Walter,
go out is
that's
Saturn. Hmm.
Walter, that's an interesting one because I love the it's a bit like the Hindu, the sidereal astrologers. They only deal with some from the sun through to Saturn,
Yeah.
and systematically they work very very well. My only thing I would say is that you from what I've learned over the years, because I love both systems, I actually
Hmm.
wanted to be and learn more about the sidereal side. Um,
Hmm.
and the reason I say that is because back then, Rob Hand and Lee Lehman, I saw them here in Australia, and they'd only just discovered. Rob was in the process of starting to rewrite the Latin texts.
Mm.
They'd found them and they hadn't even written them up, and there was only just hadn't even released the Fedaria or any of the Almutans or any of those sorts of stuff.
Hmm.
That wasn't even out yet. So the only system that really worked like that was sidereal, and that was the only one I really had to work with at the time. But then I disappeared and went off and had children and worked and
Hmm.
put my astrology to the side for a while.
Yeah, because the Vedic system deals with the sidereal. Yeah.
Yes, that's right.
Mm-hmm.
But it works in a similar format with tables and how things work. So,
Hmm.
um, I've got a number of sidereal books, and they're very interesting because they're formula based. That's what I if I had to define them fairly simply, they're formula based.
Hmm.
So, let's say, for example, you're a sidereal astrologer. Well, you know how we talk about we have tables to learn. We need to put bits and pieces together. They might have 10,000 rules.
Hmm.
Then you got to learn them. And those rules could be something, and I'm this is me making something up, but it might be if the ruler of the first house is in the second house and it aspects the sun in the fifth house, and the sun's ruler is dispositing ruler is Venus, then this will happen. And it's
Hmm.
like a statement, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So what happens is you have examples might be that you have statement after statement after statement, and how the sidereal astrologer will tend to determine whether something is fated, and then they look for the time of it, is they go, if your chart will have things like, I'll use this as an example. I will own many cars, say for example. And back then it might have been I'll own many camels,
Hmm.
okay, or horses. So the original stuff, because that's we use for transport.
Hmm.
So it might be I'll own many cars. So my if I go through my chart and I've got this one formula that says I'll own a lot of cars, and another one says I'll own a lot of cars, and another one says I'll own a lot of cars, and then I have three or four of those formula telling me I will, and I don't have any formula that says I will own no cars, then all of a sudden I can stipulate as the sidereal astrologer, you will own a lot of cars. And it might be the person owns a taxi company,
Hmm.
for example. So
Hmm.
they own a lot of transport.
I find the
And
ancient system very fatalistic also.
it is very fatalistic, but and that's the that's in inverted commas the problem.
Hmm.
Um, but I don't say that lightly because it can be very very powerful,
Hmm.
um, and it is fatalistic, and that's probably what people went. That's why you had all these Western astrologers going, "No, I'm going to use this psychologically." That's why it was poo-hooed because the other issue you go back 150 years and astrology and mediumship and spirituality was all very commonplace.
Hmm.
The problem is, and we still see it, is that people would come in and be charlatans in those areas and use it to con people into getting
Mhm.
what they wanted.
Right. Now,
And people, and
I'm sorry,
that's
go
where
ahead.
the problem lay. You know what I
Now,
mean?
I asked one of the famous ones, but I won't say the name. Their criticism of the modern system is that they feel that they don't the interpretations is not clear. It's too psychological. The astrology still they say is based on being able to make a decision, and
Yes.
with a client and be very clear about that particular decision. He said that it's not it's too psychological and it doesn't give a clear delineation of when a client comes in front of you. uh that's why he because he said he was once a modern astrologer, but he found that it was more concise, the delineation in the ancient system. That's what that was his.
Walter, would agree with you.
Hmm.
And this is where the argument lies. So the
Hmm.
argument lies is, do you want to give someone a direct decision and take away their free will? This is the argument,
Ah, good point, good point.
right?
Yeah, yeah.
So the problem, and this is the dichotomy, like
Hmm.
where do we sit with this? Teresa's learning a system, especially with traditional astrology and using it, and then if you go into a horary branch and you've got this, you had this whole sort of disconnect. I love the fact that traditional astrology is making a resurgence. I love the fact that people like Rob Hand and all his
Hmm.
researchers brought that forward, and Lee Lehman doing her bit,
Hmm.
and amongst many others, by the way. It's not just
Hmm.
those two, but
Hmm.
um, and then you've got the siderealists. But where I suppose what I'd like to see down the track is a little bit of both.
Yes, yes,
So
I
you've
agree.
got that capacity. So my point to you, what I was going to make in the scheme of things is never underestimate as somebody. So you've learned a seven planet system.
Hmm.
Never underestimate the outer planets and their capacity, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto.
Hmm.
And I can put my hand up and say I've experienced things along the way that I would definitely say that those planets have had a major impact on me at certain points of time in my life.
Yes.
And and why do I say that? Because let's use an example. Pluto in my lifetime has passed my ascendant, it's passed my Mercury, it's
Hmm.
passed my Sun, and it's passed my Venus. So
Hmm.
I've had all these personal impacts of it. And therefore, what you learn from that, you go, oh my God, I don't really care if I don't have another Pluto transit in my life. But the point, but but the point is, it brings stuff, and nine times out of ten, it's because you need to learn it. Now, why do I say I hope it doesn't come back again? Pluto's in my 11th house natally, which is pretty good placement, but it's ruling an intercepted 12th house.
Hmm.
So nothing's clear. So what Pluto brought me every time is people who were underhanded or
Hmm.
can't be seen, who were not showing the truth. And even when you try and shine a light on it from anything,
Hmm.
if people lie to you, how can you actually deal with something? So you
And the
can't deal with
argument.
something unless it's out in the open to deal with. So the
Mhm.
Plutonian energies to me were very not comfortable. But what the lesson in that instance that I really found was a lot to do with was because my Pluto is opposite my Saturn, is I had to put boundaries in place whether I
Ah.
thought they were nice or not.
And the argument with the modern astrologer is that had they known about Pluto, would they use it? Would they have used it? And that's what he was saying. The modern astrologer is that, see, 1930, I think the Pluto was discovered by Percival
Yep.
Lowell, I think it was.
Hmm.
Had they knew about it in the ancient days, Pluto, would they have used it? That's what the
I,
argument is. Yeah.
yeah, I know. And the point
Mm,
is, so the other thing is you're talking about, and this is what I love about astrology and I love about the
mm,
traditional side.
mm,
You're talking tens of thousands of years
yes.
of formula creation based on experiences.
Uh-huh.
You're talking about something that, people who were fatalistic looked for answers and they looked for specific decisions.
Hmm.
They wouldn't go to war if if the astrology said no. They wouldn't get married if the astrology said no. They
Yeah.
wouldn't. And if you look at something like India, and it may be changing now as people move away from the astrology a little bit, because I don't know if you guys have ever been to India, but I have, and one of the things that comes up to me is the modern Indian, i.e., the westernized Indian, doesn't want to know anything about astrology. But when I was in India in 2000, I went over there and I was doing an internet based company and I was trying to get stuff off the ground over there. I was staying with a guy called Kunal and his brother Rahul in Calcutta.
Uh-huh.
But Kunal had a secondary reason for being there. He was, in inverted commas, shopping for a wife for his son in Brisbane
Mm.
to bring her back. Now, I remember sitting at a cafe there, or sitting at a restaurant, and he's got a newspaper, a really big newspaper, full of ads of all these
Wow.
people advertising for, looking for a husband or looking for a wife. And he was going through and circling people were of interest, and then they would go off and they would have a discussion and meet the parents, and then they'd get the astrologer involved, and then the rest. Now, I can't, and I'm only speaking from what I see. I don't know the reality of it, but I do know there's a hell of a lot less of a divorce rate in India than there is here.
Yes. I think that's what the culture also. You know who changed
It
their
is
mind
cultural also, yeah.
you know who changed their mind at the end of their transit when they transitioned? Chris Brennan had an interview with Robert Zoller. And
Yep.
at the end of his before he transitioned, he interviewed him in his last interview, and he changed his position on the fatalistic aspect of ancient astrology. He said that he would emphasize more of the magic, the hermetic aspect of and dealt with a lot of that more so than the fatalistic. Well, what he was saying at the very end, as the more so as the fatalistic aspect of it in that interview. He emphasized a lot of the ancient magic that he began to become interested in at the end of his life. He was talking about in that interview.
Mm.
Yeah.
Well, that would make sense, and that's sort of in some respects
Mm-hmm.
where I mean, I personally, just from experience, so if I'm doing this from a little bit of
Mm-hmm.
what have I learnt in 40 something years of doing astrology,
Mm-hmm.
I think there is a definite lack of capacity to seriously predict using modern Western astrology in a psychological sense.
Mm-hmm.
I think that when I say that though, I'll give you another example. I had a client come to me recently, and and when I say client, he was actually my Uber driver that was driving me to the airport. I said, and I told him I did astrology, and he didn't really believe in it much, but he was also a kinesiologist as well as a personal trainer and other things. I won't go into too much detail, but I looked at what he described was happening. I said, it sounds to me like you're going through a Uranus opposition,
Mm-hmm.
and his life was being turned up. And he'd also met a woman at the time that he was just coming out of a relationship with. So when I pinpointed a couple of things, and I thought, no, you're a little bit old for that. Then I did his chart up before I got out of the car, and his Uranus opposition was happening exactly at that point, even
Wow.
though he was
Wow.
44.
Wow.
And I went, wow. So therefore, this is when I say, to you, Walter, don't underestimate the effects of the outer planets.
The outer
And
planets, yeah.
from what was there was sounded to me like that. So I try and blend both. And then I looked and I saw that he was just leaving a Pluto, I think it was opposition his Venus.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, wow, he's just dodged a bullet. But it's probably cost him a lot of money.
Yeah.
So what happened was that I then had a consultation with him, and we went through stuff, and it was a lot of it was a little bit psychological, how to deal with things, plus also some predictive timings of things,
Mm-hmm.
and literally down to some of the timings were, around this particular day you'll meet someone, and then he's rung me back later and said, well, guess what? On that day I met this person. You were exactly right to the day. Now that was a fairly simple one. It was like Jupiter conjunct something literally on the day. There might have been a moon triggering it. Anyway, I can't remember. But what I had a conversation, I said to him this. I said, look, the problem we have as astrologers is that sometimes we can see something and we know that you're going to go through a specific event, or there's a process, you could say, that you're going to have to go through to learn something.
Mm-hmm.
And this is what I think the outer planets really are, more so than the predictive, no, you should do this and you should do that, and that's the way it's going to be. Because sometimes when you make a decision that this is the way it's going to be and you do that, you often feel, whether you call it FOMO, fear of missing out, or something's not right, or you hadn't quite dealt with a particular problem, so it's going to come back again later, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But what I said to him was this. I said, look, a year and a half ago, when you met this girl, if you'd come to me and said to me, what do you think of this? And I turned around and I said to you, listen, if you go into this particular scenario, she's going to manipulate you. She's going to have problems. She's probably going to take a lot of money off you, and you're going to end up psychologically stuffed up. And you're
Mm-hmm.
going to come out the other end going, oh my God, what the hell happened? Because that's how it lined up in his chart.
Mm-hmm.
Would you have listened to me? And he goes, probably not, because the attraction was too strong.
Men tend to be very visual anyway.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But it was not just that. It's an energetic thing. This is
Mm-hmm.
a Plutonian transit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's
Very intense.
alluring, it's drawing you in. It's strong. It's powerful. It's
Yeah.
it's
The
it's
Pluto.
nearly like
I
it's
got you.
bringing out it's
Yeah, I
bringing
got
out
you.
your dark side for you to deal with. So
Yes.
my point was this: if I had done what the predictive astrologer said and said, listen, I would steer away from that relationship, this, and this. Here's an example of someone saying, sorry, no. Don't touch the iron, it's hot. Really? Ah! As a
Yeah.
little kid, you had to experience it to come out the other end.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's what I find the outer planets work like a process.
So it's the psychology blended with the prediction.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'll give you another example of a couple of things that I
Mm-hmm.
say this to students when I've taught in the past. I go, Uranus transits. They go, what's the problem? Why is it? I said, Uranus transits are like this. They're like, imagine this. You're walking along, you got blinkers on. You can't see them. You don't know they're there, right? They're outside. And you can see the way you're going. And Uranus is your higher self and life going, dude, you're going the wrong way. And you
Mm-hmm.
keep walking. And it's like spiritually, it's going, look, you've just got to change. All right, fine. You get a little rock thrown at you. Boom, ow. And you look this way. Yeah, that's it. You're looking the right way. Oh, no, keep walking. All right, that didn't work. I'm going to get a bigger rock. Whoosh, boom, ah, pain.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God, look what happened.
Mm-hmm.
And you keep, and I keep walking. I've just told you, you've got to turn. Listen, how am I going to get you to stop and turn around? All right, walk up with a big block of wood, crack in the leg. Boom. I can't walk. Yeah. And if you get up and keep walking, next time it might be in the back of your head. So that's Uranus. Uranus comes along and it goes, it's going to disrupt. It's going to change. It's telling you you're doing something wrong. It's not in your best interest spiritually to grow this way. You're not being enlightened. You're not going the right way.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you know, I use the example of my son, as in not my son. I'm talking about my physical son who
Mm-hmm.
has a yod to Saturn in the first house in Taurus, so he doesn't want to listen to anybody. And the two planets on the end are Mars and the Sun. And while he had Uranus transiting across that Saturn, I'm telling him to slow down on his motorbike. Do not ride the way you are.
Hmm.
Do not do the things you're doing. And he said, Dad, you don't say that. You're going to put it in my head. You're going to cause a problem. I go, no, I'm an astrologer. I go, if I saw this for anyone, I'd be telling them to change their ways. I said,
Hmm.
even if it's for a period of 2 to 3 months, you need to make a change. You need to do something. You need to change your methods. Get off your bike would be the best thing for the next 3 months. But
Hmm.
in the meantime, just be careful and do this, 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 and this.
Hmm.
Now, here's a kid who was riding on a motorbike on freeways really fast, dodging in and out of traffic. And I'm like, and he's got his camera on his helmet showing it all.
Mm-mm.
And I'm like, no.
No.
So, so I said to him, listen, it's not going to be you, but if something wants to slow you down, life will cause you to slow down. So what happened? Here he was driving on his bike, wasn't going that fast, but he was doing a reasonable, picking up speed, and some idiot decides to pull out of a driveway. Saw him coming and pulled out anyway.
Wow.
He's had to slam the brake on. He's gone to and you can see he hit the back of a car. He's flown over the top of it. He's been unconscious for 45 minutes on the ground
Oh no.
and smashed his knee, of course, because Saturn.
Hmm.
And
Skeletal structure.
yeah,
Yeah.
and
Hmm.
I'm like, and his knee, because Saturn rules the knees.
Needs the knees, right. Hmm.
Yeah, but I laugh, but it's not funny. But his biggest injury, he said, was his gonads and his, private parts because he put a big dent in the fuel tank of the bike going over the top of the car,
Mm.
and that was more bruised and damaged than his leg, he reckons. So, and then I say to him things like, because he's a Sag,
Hmm.
that's why he survived, because his sun's in Sag and his Mars is in Libra. So
Hmm.
he's got this lovely Venus Jupiter rulership there, and his
Lucky.
Saturn's in Taurus.
Lucky.
So it's all Venus Jupiter.
Hmm.
If that was a situation where you're looking at a person and the rulerships of that Sun Mars are something like Saturn and Pluto or Saturn and Mars,
Could have been death. Hmm.
could have been something different.
Hmm.
Yeah. So this is the horrible thing. As an astrologer, what do? You can only forewarn or say, but um, sometimes you've got to speak up. You've got to say what you see. But here's an example where both parties, my son, the client, said to me both times, "No, I'm not doing what you're telling me."
Hmm. Right.
And that was an example, both of them, of Uranus type or Pluto type energies
Cycle.
that
Hmm.
come along and cause other forms and experiences.
That's an
And
important part of the equation. I do see your point. Yeah.
yeah, so it may have been in other forms. So for me, when I started learning astrology,
Mhm.
what I look back at now, and I look at the day that I decided to leave school, like I just went, no one expected me to leave school because I got a
Mhm.
scholarship. I was doing well. I was one of those kids that didn't really ever study at school. I was did
Mhm.
okay.
Mhm.
And all of a sudden I've left. I didn't even finish my schooling. I went, no, I'm out of here. And there was a number of reasons behind it. The day I left, Uranus and Jupiter were exactly conjunct my ascendant together. So I
Changing.
rebelled and said, I'm out of here in
Mhm.
Sag.
Mhm. Wow. And
So,
Sagittarius rules higher learning. Yeah.
yeah. So what did I do? I left and became an astrologer, self-taught.
Hmm.
I kept going, no, university's not for me. There's nothing there. I don't know what I want to do. Because technically I was told I could do anything I wanted to,
Hmm.
but nothing interested me.
Oh,
And
what
then
you
all of a
wanted
sudden
to
I
do
discovered
was to not
astrology.
do that.
Yeah. And what did I do? I discovered astrology.
I
So when you look at that in the Hindu sense or the traditional sense, it might have been the Jupiter conjunct the ascendant in Sagittarius.
Mhm.
But when you look at the way in which the behavior or the reaction was and can't call it rebellion, but it's like, yes, freedom at all costs type of reaction that was very quick.
Mhm.
That's not Jupiter on its own. But when you
Yeah.
combine it with Uranus, you go, okay, I see why you did that.
You see that blend.
Yeah.
Yes.
Hmm.
Hmm.
So that's why, Walter, I would say, and Teresa, when you're learning these things, don't underestimate, although they're not included in the traditional rulerships,
Hmm.
always look at them. I found that, with horse race winners at the moment in the last number of years, because Neptune's been in Pisces under rulership, that Neptune's had a lot of, um, powerful outcomes on the rulership of horses that have won races, for example.
Hmm.
When the Melbourne Cup a few years ago was won by a horse called Without a Fight, and I worked out that it was basically a Saturn Neptune horse that was going to win. Well, without a fight, you can't get more Saturn Neptune. That's to surrender, to give up,
Hmm.
Hmm.
and
Hmm. Yes,
and it
indeed.
did, it won. So these are the sorts of, things. But if I just had, I could also say, well, that's just Saturn to lose or surrender. But when you add Neptune to it, it adds another layer.
Mm. I'll definitely have
So
to
one
go.
of the reasons that I don't mind to do impromptu things, everybody has their reason, their philosophy, and I hear two of them here about how and why and what methods, and we all have different interests, that we like, different techniques, and they're all nuances, right? But
Yeah.
when I'm in a reading. And you can call me a ninth houser because I am, but I get kind of into a zone and I think I see what needs to be seen. And I think it gets pointed out to me, and I feel like I'm a vessel at that point for wherever the message is coming from, right? So if
Hmm.
you want to
Yeah.
say that's God, that's source, that's angels, that's, spirit guides,
Hmm.
ancestors, whatever, I feel like it's coming through me what that person needs to hear. And so then the technique, it ends up being whatever speaks to me. Like I have a friend who has Pallas Athena, which is one of those minor asteroids, next to her sun.
Hmm.
And she is just so powerful. And it's not that she is the most successful person in the world. It's not that she's a, power player or anything, but her personality. She's a hypnotherapist. She supports herself. She has her own house. She is just, and it's an Aquarius, and she beats to her own drum, absolutely. But she like knows her truth. She knows who she is. She's very settled with that. She's okay being single. She's okay, going out to eat by herself. Like she's just very, like you can see it come out of her. The leadership of that, and in a reading that I did with her, and I'd done several, but that was something she needed to hear out of all the things that we talked about and hours spent, and looking at this and looking at that and whatever. She needed to hear some validation just for
Hmm.
who she is. And that
Hmm.
was what came through me, the vessel, at that moment. So part of it is just a confidence level in what you know is enough. And the Ptolemaic, that's right. There is a ton. I mean, reading, you can just kill people with analysis paralysis, talking and talking, and they're just so way over their head. When you can just you can
Yeah.
spend an
Yeah.
hour talking about how their sun, moon, and trine work together and what
That's
houses
it.
they're in, and the ruler. That's enough. You don't even have to go further. So I completely agree with you, Walter,
Hmm.
about it's fine. Your method is great. If later you want to add a nuance, that's wonderful. But if you never do, that's wonderful too, because that's your message. That's the
Hmm.
message that you're supposed to
Yeah.
give out there. And you're
Hmm.
going to have clients and friends and acquaintances, people who come to you because of that message, because of what you see when you look at this thing. And it sounds like you've got some Vedic aspect, coming with it, which is really cool, because that's its own flavor. You've
Hmm.
got your own little I think of it like chili spices. You got your own little flavor blend of spices that you bring to,
Hmm.
your
Abs-
practice, to your
Yeah.
astrology. So that's
Absolutely.
wonderful.
Absolutely.
Well, Steven Spielberg definitely started something. Yeah, right off topic, but I think I don't. Did you? Are you guys getting much out of the sort of the just the what we're going through? Like just talking about the
Yeah.
Yes.
power of the planets, how to utilize them, what to look at. I you know, for me personally, where I'm at, and don't forget been doing this for a long time, but I want to sit down and learn more about horary and its rule and its rules.
Hmm.
I want to learn a bit more about that. I want to learn more, and it's very hard when you're running a school and trying to organize everything to find time to actually read up and study. I want to learn more about other people's forms of prediction for, lotteries, gambling, that type of stuff, because I've been working with it. The other day, for example, you know, you guys are going to laugh, but let me just show you here. Um, I'll just turn it around. Okay. You can probably see that on the screen. Can you see that?
Hmm.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
What was it? Wow.
Right.
Look at you.
Note the date. That is the 11th of the 12th at 4:54. Hang on. And this is the 10th of the 12th at 10 past 7 at night.
Wow.
How about that? Good for
Mhm.
So,
you.
but what the important thing is, I look for when the planets are the right spot, and this is what I'm testing. The hardest part is you got to be prepared to lose as well as win. But in both instances, when I walked in, because you got to combine a bit of intuition, I've gone, there's a bank of poker machines or slot machines I'm going to play. Which one I'm going to pick? I picked one and I went to play it, and I was being told play $1 a bet and $4 per bet, which is a lot of money. But I was just going to put in $50 and see how it goes. And it didn't have an option to play $4. So I went, okay, I'll play five then. Hit it. First spin, it gave me games and I won money. First spin. So I kept playing a bit, and that's when I took it out at $500. Then I looked and I saw what it was in this case was a combination of things, but it was transiting part of fortune conjunct Pluto. While I think I had Taurus or Cancer rising because they relate to me in my. Why I say that is because Taurus is Venus, and that's where my moon is, and I've got Venus in the second house, and the other one is Cancer because that's actually the sign of my part of fortune. So I went, okay, part of fortune conjunct Pluto, and that was the next one, the $1,000. But what I did was I then went into the same place. As you can see, it's the same place. And I've gone, played you the other day. That was the other one I was going to play. I'll play that one because I was thinking about it. I went over and I went, wonder if it'll let me do $4. So I pressed $1 and I went, oh, $4 bet. Good. Bang. First spin, once again, got the games and won money. And I kept playing and I kept winning and kept winning. And at $1,000, I said, see you later.
And part of
And I was there
fortune
both
was
times about
conjunct what? Because you're working with
Pluto.
part of fortune, Pluto.
Pluto.
Okay. Okay.
Do you want me to show you quickly what I'm talking about?
Yes, I'd like to see that.
All right. Let me
You want
share
to
my
share
screen.
your screen? Yeah, let me stop on my end and you can take it.
All right. Now I'm just going to do that for a minute.
Well, should we continue recording?
Yeah. Well, you continue. Doesn't matter. People can see it. Let me. Well, I just got to do it this way. Let's open up a chart. Oh, I got it. That's a safe chart. I'm just going to create one. Well, let me show you that one. Uh, what time did I say it was? Let's go to the chart.
Said it was seven, seven something.
Yeah, that was the first one. The second one was. Let's go to the one. This was 4:54 p.m. Well, that's when I pulled it out. So I'm going to go to say 4:50. All right. 11 December 2025 at 4:50 p.m. in Borough. All right, see it?
Mm-hmm.
Taurus rising. Now, what made me do this was this. In my natal chart, my Venus is at 13 degrees of Capricorn. You got a true and a mean node, so I tend to work with both of them. The true node is 15 degrees of Taurus. The mean node is about 13 degrees of Taurus. So what I noticed here was we have the node at 13, the moon about to oppose it, and they're all squaring Venus. The node's also stationary in Pisces. So if you look at the traditional rulers, I've got Jupiter ruling Pisces, which is the north node,
Mm-hmm.
and Jupiter rules my second house. Venus is in Sag, being ruled by Jupiter at the time, and it's also natally in my second house. The moon, don't care what sign it's in, it's a trigger. So the moon accesses or energizes this energy. So what I then wanted was to see whether I could time something where the part of fortune transiting works very well when it's conjunct Pluto and or Jupiter. Sometimes also Venus. I don't mind that as well, but I tend to use that when it, and even the sun, to be honest. But that's for other reasons. In my natal second house is the sun and Venus, but they're in Capricorn. The rising sign was Taurus. What's rising at the time is important. So this is related to, it's ruled by Venus, which is natally in my second house. So I tend to try and look for the rising sign to be Taurus, or where my natal part of fortune is Cancer, sometimes even Libra, or Sag, or Leo. Why? Because Sag rules my second house, Leo rules the sun, which is in my second house, and my Jupiter is natally in Leo, which rules my second house. So I look for relationships to the second house and money. What I did here was I went, let's just go and check it out. And if I animate the chart, you'll see that by minutes, at 4:54, it's gone into Aquarius and it's very close. Now, what I then did, what you're not aware of, is I went on and I played two other machines. And I played them from 4:54 up to about there for another 10 minutes. Maybe not even that long, to be honest. I probably stopped more around there, probably around 5. So I played them for about another 6 minutes. That'd be realistically. And then I went, okay, these aren't paying. I'm out of here. And I probably came out $850 or $900 ahead. So, because I put another $250 notes in, and that was it. And went, no, they're not going to pay, so I'm out of here. I could have stayed on the same machine, and maybe it would have kept paying, because I have seen that happen before, but not always. So what I'm now going to do is I'm going to go, let's go ahead by days. So what I'm looking for here, and you'll see this part of fortune position changes where the moon moves around, because as the moon's moving, when it's going to, so at the here for example, notice I go forward 2 days by the same time, and if I go back by hours, the part of fortune is going to hit Pluto today for me at 3 p.m. So in about an hour and 50 minutes, maybe I should run across the road. But I probably won't.
Yeah.
One reason, I'll tell you why. Because it's a few days later, I now have Aries rising.
Mm-hmm.
It's not Venus, or it's not the moon. So what I'm trying to work out is what's the best time. So what I will do though, I'll give you an example.
What about when the
I'm gonna
moon
go,
goes into Scorpio?
doesn't necessarily work for me, but it can. We won a grand jackpot with the moon in Scorpio, with Pluto conjunction. But when the moon, no, the moon wasn't in. Oh no, that was when I had. Oh, that's another thing. No, that wasn't the grand jackpot. That was the moon in Taurus. Bear with me. I'm just going to go forward a few days. Let's go forward to Boxing Day. We've already looked at that. What you're not aware of is my Venus, my sun, I should say, the sun is at 2 degrees 26 minutes Capricorn. So it's basically squaring your moon, Teresa. That's my sun position. So with Venus sitting there conjunct, or coming up to conjunct the sun, and the moon's going to be in Pisces, that's okay. I'm not too fast. And that moon in Pisces will be sextiling my nodal position and doing other bits. It'll also be sextiling my Venus natally. I probably should build up my natal chart with it, but let me just show you. What I'm looking for now is I'm going to go forward hours and no, what am I doing here?
So you're trying to
That's
get
it.
to a Taurus rising? Oh, okay.
This one. There we are. So with Taurus rising, the part of fortune in my natal part of fortune house sign conjunct Jupiter about there, maybe even back a little bit. If I'm in Borough by location at 4:02 p.m. on the 26th of December, I should be running off down there to play the pokies because Venus is conjunct my sun at the same time as I've got this. That's
Yeah.
sort of an option, okay? And Taurus is rising. Now, if I had to move location, this will all change. The time changes. So you got to do it for where exactly you are. That's the point. Um, and this is the sort of stuff I've been working on for a long time. If I go forward, all of a sudden you notice it pops up back up here because the sun's set and the part of fortune switches. And this is where the difference lies. Now I'm going to go forward a few more days. So I think the other one, another lucky day I have is 3rd of Jan, was it? Yes. Why? My Venus in the second house is at 13 degrees of Capricorn. Here we have Venus approaching it and the Sun conjunct it. Both planets are natally in my second house. So what? And the Moon will be in Cancer, coming up to conjunct Jupiter. Yeah, not a bad spot. That's 11 p.m. So let's go back by hours. There, bingo. I'm going to go back a bit more. I'm going to look at about here. Pluto opposing the ascendant, Jupiter moon. The moon will be exact opposition to my Venus, and it's a full moon. Look,
Mm-hmm.
Venus is there. Node conjunct Pluto. So I'm looking at it going at 9:28 p.m. on a Saturday night. I'll let you know how I go.
Okay.
Wow.
This is the sort of stuff that I've been working with. And it, and
Jupiter's
it
exalted in Cancer.
yes,
Hmm.
it's also, but the key point of this is degrees.
Hmm.
The 13 is exactly opposite my um my Venus. My Venus is at 1334. Look at that, 1336. While we have this happening, the part of fortune conjunct Pluto, and the Sun will be conjunct my Venus. Venus will be conjunct itself. The Moon triggering it, and Jupiter will be sort of in the vicinity of it all. And you see here you got Leo rising. My Jupiter's conjunct there. Now, what I might even do, believe it or not, is just go back and leave it in Cancer. So I may even start that little bit earlier as the part of fortune approaches to grab the energy from Cancer and bring it across. Is it going to change when it goes into Leo? Potentially. But my Jupiter is in Leo at 2 degrees. So it's going to start bringing that ascendant into Jupiter pretty quickly. So I'll keep you posted. Oh, and the other thing is Mercury will be conjunct my sun, and Mercury rules my eighth house.
Well, you need to come back on to the delineation session in January after this and let us know how it goes.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And you know what? I
Yeah.
might, I might fail, but with these here and what I've learned so far, this looks pretty positive. The issue is you need to go when to get in and when to get out. And then sometimes, and this is the other thing where I talk a little bit fatalistic, what if I pick the wrong machine? What if I could have won more, but I wasn't meant to?
Yeah.
And I'll give you the example why, and then we'll get off. When we won, Lydia and I won a grand jackpot of $9,000. I said to her, astrologically, we need to go up to the pub and we're going to play between 9:30 and 10:30. Before I knew more of this stuff and actual timing, let me show you.
Are you studying any particular, how did you learn how to do this?
Worked it out myself.
Or you worked it out yourself?
I hate to say it, but that's sort of what happened. Let me just see here. I think I've got to get into this. At least no one can see my passwords. All right, now let me just go to. Oh, look, now you're in all my folders. There's only a little bit of work that goes on. Okay, there's me. Uh-huh. It's that one. Wait on. Where is it? Dum, dum. Ah, here we go. Boom, boom. I'll use this one. Here's the chart of the time that we won $9,000.
Oh, wow.
Look where Pluto and the part of fortune are.
Yep. I see it.
Yep, conjunct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Look here. Moon, Jupiter, Taurus.
Yep.
Ooh.
So it was because of this transit. Now, I have to explain. And don't forget, Cancer rising, where my part of fortune is natally.
Good for
You
you.
know,
Yeah.
yeah. So you look at it, and what the thing was, which was very interesting, was, and this was the big key. When we were playing this particular machine, we started winning a little bit. Lydia and I had started winning a little bit, and you can see I played $2.50 for the bet, and we were playing, I don't know how many cents per line or whatever. It might have been 10 cents. Oh, it was 10 cents because I'll tell you what happened. So we were playing this particular machine, and yeah, and what happened was that it was winning a little bit, and there was I call it a sign from the universe. A young guy called Ben walked past, and I'd gone to the toilet. Lydia was still just playing it for us because we had a time limit. I said, well, let's play within this time. And we'd won about $600. And it kept going down and kept coming up, kept going down, kept coming up. And then Lydia says, and she said, Ben goes, oh, that one, I know what happens with this machine. Often people play it and then it wins up to about $600 and then it stops winning, right? And I'll just stop sharing the machine. Then it stops winning. And then what they do is they pull it out and they put more money in and then it wins again. So, and I came back and she told me, oh, Ben just said something strange. And I said, oh, look, let's pull it out anyway. We're at $600. We won some money. That's obviously what we're meant to win tonight. And I said, you go get the money. So she gave her the ticket, went to the bar to go and get the money. And she comes back. And I went to another machine because I thought we were there. And she says, aren't you going to play that machine again? I said, no, I'm done with it. She goes, but you heard what Ben just said. And I said, oh, look, if you wanted, do you want to have a go? She goes, yeah, all right. She said, set me up. I went, all right. So I put $50 in and I selected 10-cent bet, $2.50. I said, there you go. Here, knock yourself out. She pressed the button, first spin, got the games, and that was $9,000.
Ooh.
So I was about to walk away. So if I was there on my own, I wouldn't have won.
Mhm.
So this is what I mean by part of it is it intuition? Was it a combination of the two of us? Why I say that is Lydia's moon's in Leo, and
Mhm.
her moon was being squared by that whole sort of moon Jupiter stuff as well. But also she had that Mars was in Sag at 2 degrees. You'll notice, which was trining my Jupiter, and also trining her trining my Jupiter and trining her moon. Um, and I don't know if that had something to do with it. Not 100% sure, but it could have. But I do believe it was the moon Jupiter, and that. But what was really significant was when I went back and looked at any of the bigger wins I had,
Mhm.
that part of fortune conjunct Pluto or conjunct Jupiter was very prolific. So that made me look elsewhere. So there's a bit of
Well,
a
those
tip
are
for you.
both positive things too when you're trying to learn both horary and electional. I follow some electional work and I'm always trying to figure out, how they're piecing good charts together. And I used to be asked all the time, okay, well, when do you think a good time is to send our newsletter? And
That's right.
so Sam used to say to me, okay, Jen, you tell me. Like, I know the answer, you tell me. And even as a brand new, into this world of professional astrology, and I would take what I knew, and he taught me through the weeks, like how to pick a decent election to send
Election.
out the newsletter.
Mhm.
And so sometimes it's trial and error, but looking at even just listening to podcasts and things, there's probably stuff inside the library, on how to make a good election or some of the horary information because that can help you with this. And Jupiter
Yeah.
and Venus having anything to do with the moon, and if the moon's in Cancer, that's always good. Part of fortune, what's rising, and then trying to put the malefics out of pocket if you can, so that
Yeah.
they're not as prominent. So.
So I agree, and that's the thing. What I like to do is what you were just saying from a simple day-to-day thing. If I'm going to send out an email which is important, or I'm going to make a phone call that's important, I'll try and time it where I've got the part of fortune sitting conjunct what I want it to be, whether it be Jupiter, whether it be Pluto, whether it be Venus. Um, as long as the other, obviously it's not on a bad day. I've got, I'm not going to do it with the moon conjunct Saturn in Capricorn, and I want to,
No, no.
ring up and win something. Like it just
Uh-huh.
it's the greatest time. But if excluding that, I'll pick a day like you saw here, where
Hmm.
if I've got a day where I've got Venus transiting and the Sun transiting both conjunct my Venus in the second house, and the Moon's opposing it from Cancer, and Jupiter's conjunct that Moon, and the Cancer's rising, and Pluto's with the part of fortune, I'm going to go play some poker machines.
Mhm.
Hmm.
Ideally, I'd like to find a lotto that's drawn at exactly that time
Mhm.
All
Mhm.
and see
right.
how
Well,
I
keep
went.
us posted, Luke.
All
It's
right,
10
I'm gonna.
o'clock. So
You can
I think
sort of
it's,
any questions, guys. Therese, you got any questions or?
Great class. Enjoyed it.
No, I think we've gone for a good 2 hours. So yeah, a bit longer than normal, but we did have that long chat in the beginning.
yeah.
Enjoy your weekends, everybody. It's middle of Saturday now for me, and I've got to go get a few things done. So.
All right.
All right.
Bye,
Thanks,
guys.
man. Bye.
Thanks for participating. It was a lot of fun. I hope you had fun too.
We
All
did.
right.
Yes, indeed.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.